Hello my dear friends and dear learners. Right, today we are going to discuss another classification of the cost, or you can say the primary classification of the cost. As you know, if you're watching my previous video, in the previous video we had discussed the main concept of the cost. Actually, what is the meaning of the cost according to the accountant, what is the meaning of the cost from the point of view of economist, and what is the meaning of the cost from the point of view of the mathematician. This is all what we discussed in the previous video session. Now we are going to discuss the types of cost, or you can say the cost categorization or the cost classification, right? So this is actually the first main part which I'm going to discuss in this video. This is most important part, because without understanding this classification, first classification actually of cost, that is known as fixed cost, variable cost and the semi-variable cost, until unless you are not having a clear concept about these three, you cannot understand few subjects like financial accounting, like management accounting, like cost accounting, because this is the base actually. The cost, as already in the previous video, the cost actually is the base. Understanding the cost is very much indispensable and very much important. But as far as the classification is considered, this is the first primary classification. That's why I'm calling it myself. This is not defined in the books. This is the primary and the secondary classification. There are a lot of classifications are there in the books, but this is myself, I'm using this word primary classification, because this is very much important when you are going to solve some practical problems, when you are going to take some practical decisions further. So that's why I'm taking in this video as a part 1, right? As a part 1, this is fixed cost, variable cost and semi-variable cost. So under this we will discuss one by one. What is actually the fixed cost? I will denote it by FC. FC is what? Fixed cost. As the name indicates, look, as the name indicates, the cost, FC, the cost which remains, the cost which remains fixed at any level of output. The cost which remains fixed at any level of output, this is known as fixed cost. One connotation is there. So here the first word to be emphasized here, if we go in detail, first you should know the meaning of the output here, right? So we are talking about the production output. We are talking about what you are producing actually, right? Output. So any cost either which remains fixed at any level of output, or which remains constant at any level of output, or we define any cost, the cost which does not change with the level of output. So, as you understand it, either the cost which remains constant, which remains unchanged, or which does not change with the level of output. So actually what I want to make you realize here, that meant to make you emphasize or stress upon, is that level of output. Actually level of output is what you should understand, because there are some differences between the volume, output, right, capacity, what we are producing, volume, right? So output here means, for example, if you have established a plant, right, you have that will have an installed capacity. Suppose I'm going to produce this marker, as I always give you the example of the marker or whatever. So I'm going to produce any kind of the plastic product, right? I will establish a plant and machine that will be there, right? Entire set of the machinery will be there. So that plant, entire factory I'm talking about, that plant will have the total installed capacity. Suppose the plant which I have established, the plant which I have started, that is able to produce 10,000 units. That is able to produce that, the maximum capacity. When we are defining the maximum capacity, this is actually known as installed capacity. Installed capacity. of that particular plant. But whatever the installed capacity of that particular plant, but it does not mean what will be the installed capacity or the maximum capacity which your plant is having, that you will produce the same number of units. Definitely that the production level will be different. Suppose you will produce according to the demand in the market. Suppose there is only demand in the market only of 6,000 units. So this 6,000 units, suppose the demand will increase, you will start producing 7,000 units. Suppose the demand will decrease, you have started producing 5,000 units. This actually known as output level. This is known as output level, which we talk about here, right? So output level, and this is actually known as scale. So many people do not know the difference between the scales and the output level. So this is actually whatever the maximum capacity of the plant is fixed, that is known as a scale. जो आप जानते हैं ना, मीडियम स्केल बिजनेस, राइट, लार्ज स्केल बिजनेस, स्मॉल स्केल बिजनेस, तो वो स्केल इससे डिफाइंड होता है कि आपकी टोटल मैक्सिमम कैपेसिटी प्रोड्यूस करने की कितनी है. बट हाउ मच यू आर प्रोड्यूसिंग, दैट इज नोन एज एक्चुअली द आउटपुट और द वॉल्यूम, हाउ मच यू आर प्रोड्यूसिंग, राइट, दैट इज नोन एज लेवल, output level, right? Suppose, so what we mean to say here is that if you are producing 6,000 units, then the fixed expenses, even your fixed cost will not change. If you have started producing 7,000 units, even the fixed cost will remain unchanged, that will not be affected. When you have started 5,000 units, even, so it is irrespective of the fact, it is completely irrelevant to this level of the output. So the cost which is completely irrelevant, the cost which is not related with the level of the output, the cost which does not change with the level of output is known as fixed cost, right? The examples may be many. Examples, for example, rent, the glaring example, I take the rent, right? Suppose you can say that depreciation, actually I will not take the here. Salary of supervisor or guard. Suppose you have started a plant, you have taken a building on rent, whatever, right? When you have taken an entire building on rent, so rent is the fixed, and rent is known as a period cost, because you pay lease rental or rent according to the time period after 1 year. Say here when you calculate monthly even, but it will be aggregated in a year, and that will be known annual rent. So your annual rent will be fixed of that particular factory, even though if you are producing 0 units. Suppose I have taken a building on rent and the rent is 1 lakh rupees per year. So this 1 lakh rupees per year is not divisible among different number of units, because this is fixed. Whatever I am producing, that is not related with this. This is the period cost actually. If I am producing 0 unit, I have to pay the same rent. If I am producing 6,000 units, I will pay the same rent. If I will produce the 7,000 units, I will pay the same rent. So any cost which remains constant at any level of output, that is known as a fixed cost, right? So I hope that this is very simple. We are not going very much detail, right, in that, because that only another subject, the cost accounting, in which we go more detail when we come to define to the fixed cost and the variable cost and the variable cost. But as far as the management accounting is concerned, we are up to here is a remarkable point we had discussed. But if we want to show it, on the graph, so many of you will understand yourself what could be the shape of the diagram, what could be the shape of graph here. Definitely, if you diagrammatically present the fixed cost, so generally on y-axis and it is x-axis, generally units are shown on the x-axis, whatever you are producing, and your rupees cost, rupees, is shown on the y-axis. So when you are producing many level of output here, whatever, suppose 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, whatever, up to 5,000, 6,000, right? And this is the scale of rupees cost. So when we are saying that fixed cost remains constant at any level of output, so definitely where it will be, suppose it is 10,000, it is 20,000. So if it is if your fixed rent or the fixed cost of your plant is 20,000, then it has to be parallel to the x-axis, because this is only the meaning of fixed cost. So when we are saying that, we are stating that the fixed cost remains constant at any level of output. So when we are going to present it diagrammatically, definitely the fixed cost line or fixed cost curve will be parallel to the x-axis. It will be a straight line, right? So whatever is that, whatever you are producing, that is completely irrelevant, that will remain the fixed. Understood? So if you are diagrammatically presented, the fixed cost curve or fixed cost line is parallel to the x-axis. So this is the way we present it on the graph. And another classification, we are going to discuss it here now, that is VC. As I've told you that I will use short names, short name, or you can say their nicknames. Now I will define it. VC. VC is what? Variable cost is any cost which changes with any level of output. It is the simplest definition of variable cost when you are coming to define what is a variable cost. As a name indicates, because all of you are belonging to the English medium background, all of you must be understanding the meaning of the fixed and the variable. Anything which is fixed is a fixed, anything which keeps changing, that is known as a variable. The variable cost is any cost which keeps changing or which changes with any level of output, just vice versa of the fixed cost. It is just the vice versa of the fixed cost as we define in the case of the fixed cost. But observe this definition here. Observe, VC is any cost which changes with any level of output. Still there is a little bit, right, lag in this definition. It is not the complete definition of the variable cost. I do not know how, right? Who can guess here? I do not know. Who can guess here what will come here? Actually, the complete definition will be when we use the word proportionally. The cost which changes proportionally. ये ध्यान रखिएगा. Proportionally does mean here, as the level of output will increase, in the same proportion the variable cost will increase. As the level of output will decrease, in the same proportion the variable cost will decrease. Actually, this is the I want to say here is that, for example, if you are producing, suppose these are the units, and if you are producing 1000 units, if then you have 1500, it is something we are taking 3000, and these are actually the VC in amount. VC in amount. In amount, suppose at 1000 units the VC was 2000 rupees. It is in amount rupees 2000. When you are producing 1000 units, the variable cost is 2000 units. What I want to say here, I want to make you understand the meaning of proportion here. Proportionally, when you have started 1500 units, so what will be the variable cost? So you have to take the unitary method to calculate the variable cost, like this: 2000 at 1500, and the base will be 1000, right? So it will be 3000 when you calculate it, 3000, because it has to change in the same proportion as your units are changing. Now suppose you have started 3000, now here will be the 3000, right? 6000. if you're observing the pattern here, the same proportion, the ratio is the same as in case of the units. So this is actually the meaning of the variable cost. But generally in question, when you are going to solve the practical question, generally it happens the variable cost is not given in amount, because it will look like a fixed amount. Generally the variable cost is given per unit cost, right? Suppose 2 rupees per unit, 3 rupees per unit, 4 rupees per unit. So then definitely when you will multiply that number of per unit with total number of units, definitely the variable cost will come automatically in the same proportion that it should be, right? It might be जिसमें इसको आनी चाहिए. लेकिन मैंने आपको एग्जांपल इसलिए दिया है कि इसी जिस प्रोपोर्शन में आपकी यूनिट्स चेंज होगी, उसी प्रोपोर्शन में आपका वेरिएबल कॉस्ट का अमाउंट चेंज होगा. दिस इज द एक्चुअली द वेरिएबल कॉस्ट is, and when you're going to diagrammatically present here, suppose diagrammatical presentation is there of variable cost, so you might have already understood. So this is again 0, it is again x-axis, it is again y-axis. On y-axis always the cost in amount or rupees is shown, here the units, right? So when we are saying that it has to change same proportion, so definitely the line of variable cost will be like this, whatever, but it will be sloping upward. It will be sloping upward because as this number of units will increase, it has to go upward. As the number of units will decrease, it has to go downward. So this is the variable cost curve या variable cost line. Total variable cost line or the variable cost curve you can say. तो diagrammatical presentation as हमने fixed cost का आपको बताया था, ऐसे ये fixed cost का होता है और इस तरह से आपका variable cost का होता है. All right. Total cost, when we say total cost, I will come to the later total cost के बारे में. अभी फिलहाल आपको मैंने बताया fixed cost and the variable cost. Now the question of examples. What the examples can be here of variable cost? There are, let me tell you dear, there are only two pure variable expenses, two pure variable cost. One is material, another example is labor. These are the two pure variable examples of variable cost because they changes in the same proportion, right, in which your level of output is changing. Suppose if you are producing 1000 unit of this marker, right, when you will start the 2000 unit of this marker, definitely the requirement of material will be double exactly of raw material, and the definitely of labor. Generally, look here, the misconception on the part of the actually the student is that, or the learners is that they consider that sometimes labor here wager. No, labor does not mean here wager. Labor does mean here efforts. For efforts and labor, the compensation is given, that is known as actually the wages. जो फैक्ट्री में जो लोग काम कर रहे हैं उसको हम बोलते हैं, जो फैक्ट्री में एफर्ट्स कर रहे हैं, जो लेबर कर रहे हैं, जो मेहनत कर रहे हैं, उनका जो मेहनताना है, द मेहनताना एक्चुअली द कंपनसेशन ऑफ देयर लेबर, कंपनसेशन ऑफ देयर एफर्ट इज नोन एज वेजेस. उसको हम बोलते हैं वेजेस. तो ये दो प्योर वेरिएबल हैं जो बिल्कुल सेम प्रोपोर्शन में चेंज होती हैं, राइट. नाउ वी आर कमिंग टू द थर्ड segregation. As you know, looking here is that semi variable cost. Let me tell you now semi variable cost. I hope this distinction is clear. Now coming to the semi variable cost. Semi-variable cost, actually we can say, first of all, easiest way, in the easiest words I can tell you, semi-variable cost is the combination of both. Combination of fixed cost and variable cost. And this combination will depend, whatever the information is given in the question. It will be mentioned in the question. For example, the total cost is given, and it will be mentioned in the question that in this total cost the 30% is fixed and 70% is variable cost. So first of all is the combination and subject to be the conditions which are given in the, which are mentioned in the question. So it is a combination of both. That is known as actually the semi-variable cost, or sometimes that's why when I'm saying that it's a combination of both, that's why it is known as semi-fixed cost also. Semi-fixed cost. One connotation is there. Another connotation is there. The cost, yani SWVC, in semi-variable cost is the cost which remains constant for a particular period, which remains constant for a particular period, but changes afterward. So if we talk, we are coming to the definition of the semi-variable cost. So semi-variable cost की definition अगर हम देने पर आए हम तो ये कह सकते हैं the cost which remains constant for a particular period of time but they start changing after that particular period of time, that is known as semi-variable cost. The examples may be repair, examples may be commission, example may be depreciation, right? So these are some expenses. If you observe that when you are utilizing your plant or factory for a particular limit, then the depreciation, the repair, right, will remain constant. But if you go beyond that limit, for example, if you cross that you are started overproduction, then your repair and maintenance will also increase, your depreciation will also increase, right? That is known actually the maximum utilization of your plant. So first of all, for a particular period of time they remain fixed, and after that particular period of time they also start increasing. This is the example of the semi-variable cost. I hope the distinction is clear. The fixed cost, semi-variable cost, the variable cost. If you are not still clear, if you are having some doubt, please raise your query in the comment section and tell me if you did understand well or not, right? Then see you in the next video. I hope the sense is done, and thank you and see you later. Goodbye.